Is up, Soul Warriors? Welcome to this Saturday night Soul Session live with me, Reverend LC, and welcome to Recovery Soul Food, man. This is a spiritually based, whole self, whole soul healing, addiction recovery podcast, and I'm super grateful to be here. We're running a little bit late tonight. You know how things go, just how it is, but we're here, and I'm grateful. And we're still taking a break from the 10-part series that I've had going, taking apart each year of my recovery and breaking down the lessons and the blessings and all the stuff in hopes that maybe it will help somebody out there who's going through their recovery program and maybe is having a hard time, feels like maybe they're alone. So if you've missed any of those episodes, episodes 1 through 6 are available on the YouTube channel, as well as where you get your podcast. The audio and video version is available on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, all the places. But tonight, man, I really want to talk about toxic anger. I've been going through some stuff. This has been a huge battle for me. I may be talking a lot to my masculines tonight. Not that our feminine nature cannot be angry, not that you know, not that females can't be angry. That's not what I'm saying. But what I have the most experience with is the toxic anger that is very masculine driven. And so, especially my dads and my husbands and all of those guys out here, this may, I hope that this will mean something to you, because the reason I came on to this subject tonight and the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I've recognized it in my own life, and it is also something that has been a huge hurdle for me and something that I've spent a lot of time, effort, and to work on within myself. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about toxic anger. We're in a climate right now in collective humanity that is easy to draw us into divisionary toxic anger, and it's really hard not to. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it's all the time. It's here, there, everywhere. We are surrounded by it. So in the ways that I have always spoke, that the recovery community is so vital in this next shift in humanity, I'm serious about it, because these are some of the things when you are in a recovery journey, you're on a healing journey. If you have decided that you are not just going to count days for your sobriety, you're actually going to heal some shit that's inside of you that keeps you running back or looking over your shoulder for relapse and all of those things. If you're on that kind of journey, then these are some of the things and the issues that we are already working on. And that's how we can help bless humanity. So when you are moved to use your voice in whatever part of the recovery healing process you are in, when you feel led to use your voice, please use it, because you may be the difference made in somebody's world in that very, very, very moment. You never know. You never know what the divine and the creator is up to and how you can be used. So when you feel led, open your mouth and share. So, for those that may be new here, my name is Reverend LC, Lona LC Curry. I go by LC. I am an ordained minister. I'm an ordained pastor, but it is not a very religious base. I don't utilize that in a very religious based platform, because there's plenty of that to go around. I try to just share from a spiritual base, because I utilize creation, I utilize nature, I utilize everything to help me in this journey. I spent 22 years of my life actively escaping my own internal pain, trauma, everything, all of my defects. I spent 22 years of my life escaping through active addiction to substance, addiction to dangerous behaviors. I just didn't want to be here. My belief was I was God's little joke, because if something bad could be on somebody, man, I felt like I had it in droves and was going to keep getting it. And so it was through this perception that my I developed my main coping mechanism was anger. I was addicted to anger. Of course, unknowingly, I've been angry and had angry outbursts since I was a child. And it took me a long time. It took me about 3 years into my recovery journey to actually understand what anger was and how the coping mechanism had what it was doing in my life. Because I think first, in order for us to heal something, we first, number one, got to identify it as an issue. And then number two, we got to kind of try to find out why it's there. Why is it living there? What purpose is it serving? Because that's the thing. All of our coping mechanisms are serving some type of purpose. It is keeping us in a place of survival. And so until we make that shift of moving from a life where we're just constantly surviving to creating a life that we love, then we're in that, and it's very, very real to us. And so I had to kind of start when I knew that my anger was going to ultimately kill me, just physically. Because when we talk about what toxic anger is, we got to talk about what it does to our bodies. Our bodies go through pure hell when we are caught in these cycles of toxic anger. Every time we get all geared up, and I used to go from 0 to 100 just like that. I mean, it was just explosive, and it didn't take much to set me off. And when we develop that, especially as a young person, that is a protection. It is a protection. It is a protective shell around our vulnerability. And so we can probably look back and find out where the wound is in that vulnerability. But it becomes a protective shell. And it wouldn't really take much to set me off, and I would have these really violent outbursts, whether it was physically fighting another human, whether it was destroying things around me or in my home. I couldn't have anything nice because the moment that I would get triggered, I'd just destroy it. Just out of anger, destroy it. Then the shame and the guilt would happen because, now I've done this, and it's just this awful, never ending loop and cycle that just keeps going. But I was in this confrontation with my own son, with my teenage son one day. And I had probably had so many violent outbursts throughout his growing up that I started feeling really, really guilty that this was what I was teaching him to now do in his life. And I just somehow I just knew he was going to mimic those behaviors because that's what we do. And to be honest, I had learned to mimic the angry behaviors that I was presenting and living in from my own father. And I was in this confrontation with him, and I just felt my body in a place where that still small voice told me, "You're going to die here. You're going to end up having a heart attack, and you're going to end up dying in behind these angry outbursts." When in reality, is this important enough to give your life to? Is being right, is being heard about this subject, is it worth giving your life away to? And because my father, it hadn't been long since I had recognized that my father had passed away at a very young age. He was 55 when he passed away. And because we were estranged, I really don't know the details. But because he and I were so much alike, I knew that years of the constant stress and worry and unhealed trauma that was in his life, and his alcoholism, and just the damage he had done to his body by living in this fight or flight survival high cortisol type of space for so long, had deteriorated his own organs, had deteriorated his heart. And so what I understand is that he had this heart attack. And I just really, because when I started when I started moving out of the darkness of active addiction and unhealed trauma into creating a life that I truly did enjoy living, and a life that I was really proud of myself for creating, all of a sudden I became very, very afraid of death. I didn't want to, now my life's going well, I don't really want to die. but it was a wake-up call for me to really start to understand, what is this hurdle that I cannot seem to get over in this toxic anger? There is a healthy anger which moves us towards advocacy. There is a healthy anger that moves us towards healthy change. But there is this more prevalent toxic anger that leads us to create harm within ourselves and harm within those that we love. Because the reason that I got on this subject to talk about tonight is because I've been talking to a friend of mine, and the last interaction that we had, her husband was involved. And I started witnessing some things that I had never noticed before in all of our interactions. There, I saw this moment where I saw her demeanor completely change when he came into the room. And I also saw her start to over accommodate. And I just recognized it in that moment, in that, oh my gosh, I recognize in seeing how she is handling this situation. He wasn't in any kind of angry outburst or anything, but for some reason, my soul just understood what was happening in that moment. And so later on, after we finished that conversation, I asked her, "Does your husband have really angry outbursts?" And she says, "Yes, quite a bit, all the time." And I expressed to her what I saw, but what it really did for me was open my eyes to my own family and the damage that my toxic anger, that my angry, uncontrollable outbursts throughout the years of our lives. I've been married to my wife now, we're working on 19 years. But the angry outbursts that I had with my family, I had noticed this very same thing in my own wife. I notice it today, even in my son as he's grown. I notice that when my energy level gets to a certain place, that I start to see this fear and this over accommodating happening within their within their experience. And it started really making it so making me so aware that this had to change in my life. Not only did I not want to lose my life, but I did not want to harm the people that I love the most. And if I really back up and look at it, I can see where that happens around with everyone that really loves me, the people that are close to me. Because I've been finding myself, especially lately, I don't know if a bunch of you guys have been going through some major shifts, changes, and craziness in your life. I can imagine you are, because I've talked to about 4 of the people in my reality that I thought had all of their shit together, and turns out they're being stretched and changed and remolded as well. So I know that many of us are going through this, and maybe you're experiencing a bunch of stuff that you thought you had already healed coming back up to the surface. I've been noticing that with my own self. Me letting myself get really, really engaged with stress, whether it's stress at work, whether it's stress in our current, like, human collective energetic process, whether it's stress and all of that that's happening, no matter what it is, I have allowed myself to go down the rabbit hole of stress and have had myself in such a fight or flight space within my body that I have forgotten my practices, that I have honestly feel like some days I'm starting back over from day one. I found myself even asking the questions in my 11th year of recovery. What is this all for? I thought I had this part figured out. I thought I had healed this part. And it turns out there's more. It's still there to an extent, not near as massive as it was, but it's lived there. And it's coming up because it says now is the time that we have to heal through this. Now is the time that we've got to pay attention to this. Now is the time. Because if you want to go to that next level that we want to take you to, if you want to go to that next level you've been asking for and working towards, there's some stuff you're going to have to leave in this level. Because the doors get get thinner, the doors get more shallow, and whatever. I cannot find my words right now, but the doors get smaller as we ascend up. And as we do that, they get smaller because we have to leave more and more and more of our old baggage behind. And toxic anger is one of those things that cannot survive in the light of the life that you are working towards living. My biggest priority is peace. I need peace because chaos triggers me to a place where I lose control quite quickly. I lose control of being able to be the orchestrator in a way of my own emotions. I have done enough work in my healing journey to feel like, I have broadened my perspectives of life and humanity enough to where I can direct those emotions. Now, life is life, and that's what it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to get to a place of pure positivity all the time, happiness as a life, like a destination that we get to. That's not the deal. We're supposed to experience life. We're supposed to have these experiences. But of there is a level of control, if you will, that we can move through those things with. We can become open and not resisting. And toxic anger is an absolute indication of resistance. And when we are in resistance to what is, we are angry about it. And we feel in some kind of way when we're involved in this toxic anger that we can somehow control the outcome of whatever it is that we're angry about. And most of the time, that's just not the case. And so, how do we begin to move ourselves from this fight or flight, high cortisol space of toxic anger and move into a more healthy space in a life that we are grateful and happy to be living? With all of its stuff, are we still in a space where we're happy to be living? We can't get there living in that space of toxic anger. And so for me, the ways that I began to overcome this toxic anger for the most part, because let me say, the stuff that's left over now is so much more tame. I don't have the same type of outbursts. They're not violent, destructive. I'm not a tyrant like I used to really, really be. Um, but I still feel I'm feeling more of these moments in my life now than I really want to feel. And so I'm really digging into going back to the basics of which I'm sharing now, going back to the basics of what I began doing in the beginning and what I started, to start to really move this out, drop this baggage so that I can finally go into ascend to that next level of light that I'm being called to go to. And so the first thing I did was I went to these anger management classes, and I used to think they were just full of shit and all of that stuff. But when you're ready for change and you're desperate for change, you start going for any and everything that you can do. And that's how we build a toolbox. And we learn that in recovery is that we need many, many tools. One thing doesn't often work for everybody. And so it is up to us to utilize every resource possible and build our own toolbox. And so while I was in the anger management class, there was this night that we talked about starting to become aware of how your anger begins. And when the instructor was saying, you got to stop your anger before it gets to that point. Well, in my experience, I didn't feel like I had these indications of when it was coming and how it was fixed to explode. It was like trigger, explode, boom. That was my experience. But it turns out that there are some very telling signs that this is coming. And we go and we look at the very basics. Are we in pain physically? Um, are we hungry? Are we tired? We got to start with those basic things. Are all these things at play? If any one of those or multitudes of those are in play, then I probably don't need to put myself in situations that are going to engage that anger. And I can remove myself from those places, and I can do that in a healthy way. If I'm with people I love, if I'm with family, then I have to just speak that out. Like, hey, I'm getting to the point where I'm about to lose control here. I'm gonna have to back myself out of here. I'm gonna have to back out of this. I have to take a break or whatever. Try to fix those 5 basic needs first. And then when I was looking at that and become aware of that, I started feeling that in my body where my anger began. And I asked the instructor, so, where's your threshold? Where is it that you grab a hold of this anger when you feel it? And he kind of pointed mid belly and he says, when I feel my anger get to right here, I know that I've got to step in and do something, remove myself from the situation, ask myself a different question, try to open up to a different perspective of what it is that I'm looking at, and so in just hearing that, I started trying to become aware of where that anger lived, how it began to operate within me, what were the signs that were leading up to these big outbursts. Because, like I said, from me thinking that I went from zero to outburst, in no time, it was just because that was the habit. And I have learned through my whole spiritual and healing journey, awareness is the key to everything. Like I said in the beginning, we can't fix something we refuse to see. And if we don't look at those things, then what are we going to do? Then we stay in blame and we point outwards if we never go within. So I really started studying those things, and I started trying to give myself grace when I had the outburst. Because in the beginning of doing any of this work, you're still going to be having the outburst. You're still going to be in those situations, because how else are you going to start to recognize and notice them? And so I started at all those places, and every time I would have one of those angry outbursts, every time that would happen, I would not let the shame and the guilt loop begin to take me and spiral me down. I would make amends where it was necessary and safe to do so. If there was someone else around, I started owning my own anger and outbursts. I stopped blaming the other person. I stopped blaming the other thing. I stopped blaming the situation. And I started owning my own shit. And I started asking myself these bigger questions, these questions that broadened my entire perspective. Is there another way I can see this? Just because I believe that this thing is the truth doesn't mean that it is the truth. And so, is there another way I can see this? Is there another way I can see this other person that's making me I feel like is making me angry? Because my emotion's my choice. That was a hard one to swallow. That was a hard pill to swallow. My emotion, my choice in these reactive situations. I started paying attention to the things that I had control over, which were my environment, the people that I allowed myself to be around, the things that I brought into my awareness, the things I watched, the things I listened to. I changed all of that stuff. The first thing I stopped doing was watching the news. I stopped watching the news because I started recognizing that every morning when I would leave for work, after having watched the news all morning or even had it playing in the background, I was an angry human being going out into a world that is just full of shit to make you more angry. And so I started just trying to find out, what can I control of these situations? What can I do anything about? And then how can I start to make sure that my peace becomes the most important thing for me? And so, in doing all of those things gradually over time, I started just recognizing that I was having fewer and fewer and fewer outbursts. I started really paying attention to how this was affecting the other people in my life. And it meant a lot to me to overcome my ego, to apologize for those outbursts when they involved somebody else. And I say that, because there's a big difference here. Like, I'm not talking to people that, are in a situation where they're being abused. I'm not talking to people like, in dangerous situations like that. Yeah, that's going to make you angry. That's, that can, those, that type of anger there's a fine line of when that turns into toxic anger. Because we can be toxically angry with ourselves. It doesn't even have to be anything outside of us. We can be toxically angry with ourselves and beat the shit out of ourselves better than anybody else. And that will keep us in this loop of darkness that just continues to keep more and more and more evidence of whatever it is that we believe about ourselves. It just keeps bringing evidence to make it true. And so, as over time, as I began to utilize these tools, I started recognizing that I really, really, really did not have these same outbursts, and that overall I was just a healthier human being. And that's the healthier I got, the more important it was for me to hold on to that. And I would fight for that peace. I still fight for my peace. I still fight for my peace. I'm trying to give myself the most tremendous amount of grace that I can, realizing that astrologically we are in some crazy, crazy, crazy transits, and we've got some crazy planets moving around. And those produce a lot of different energy. I utilize, like I said, in my healing journey, I utilize everything that can give me some type of insight as to, what's happening in the world, what's happening within me, what things are attributing to all of that. And so we're going through all of that. We are in a huge monumental shift in humanity as a collective and as individuals. There's a lot of things I bet you're experiencing in your life that just don't hit the same no more. Stuff that you used to do, even for fun, it just ain't hitting the way it used to. And now you're being called to change. And maybe you're in that space where you don't have clarity of what's next. You're just knowing that what you've been doing ain't working no more. And so we're in this kind of a shadow phase where the veil seems to be kind of thick, where we don't have clarity about what's next, but we're getting very clear on what's not going to be able to come with us and the people. I wouldn't doubt if you're in some relationships that maybe you thought were your forever that are now breaking apart, that are now, finding, they're asking to be different, even if they're not breaking apart. You may be having these falling outs with friends you've had all your life, or communities you've been a part of all your life, or whatever it is. It is a huge time of change on every level. And since I don't do politics, I'm not going to get into the specifics of that, but look at that shit show. Look at this shit show. It's very indicative. If what's true on the macro is true on the micro, and what's true out here means true in here, then we're all going through it. And we have to be able to give ourselves the grace to learn. We have this idea that we're supposed to have it all together. We have this idea that once we learn a tool, that tool's supposed to work the same throughout, that if it's not working, then something's wrong with us. And really, what is the real truth is that we're supposed to change. We're supposed to evolve. That this comfort and this stability that we hold so tightly to is really an illusion. It's just really an illusion. Your stability comes from within, at the depths of who you are as a creation, a divine creation. And whoever you are, in whatever situation you're here, you're breathing, you're supposed to be here. And I have to keep reminding myself of this too, because I look at all this going on, I'm thinking, oh my God, who wants to even go through all this? And I have to try to work to keep myself excited for what's next. Because again, it's a fine line of getting pressed about what could be next and getting excited about what's next. Because that faith muscle that gets thrown, that word faith gets thrown around so much, and it's really nice to say, and it's very motivating to say, and it can be very inspiring to say. But when your faith gets tested, it is being tested now. And so to be in a depressed state about what's going on, one of the ways to create hope is to utilize that faith and just to know that I'm here for whatever purpose right now. And I trust that regardless of what it is that I feel like I'm looking at, that there is a bigger and deeper plan for it all. And I'm going to be a part of that light. I'm going to be a part of the positive changes that are coming. I'm not going to give in and add to the toxic anger that seems to be the theme of this entire collective right now, that just seems to be so easy to engage in, because let us know that anger, especially toxic anger, gives us a great amount of dopamine hits. And we're firing dopamine at a rate that is just crazy. Crazy. With the inventions of places like TikTok and Instagram and all of these 30 to 60-second hits, we have trained our brains to become addicted to these 30 to 60-second dadgum dopamine hits. And so a lot of us find ourselves not utilizing long form content, not utilizing, different things. We're listening to this stuff and we're letting it just engage us, and we're letting it just seep in, because darkness usually seeps in slowly over time, and it starts to infect our soul. And before we know it, we're in a dark place because we've forgotten to do our gratitude in the morning. We have forgotten to be thankful for who and where and we are, and who's around us and what's around us and all the amazing things. We're in a culture that says you better be striving for the next thing or you're lazy. You got to go get your hustle on or you're lazy. And that is not the case. We spend so much time out there or back here that we're missing right now. And for every second that goes by, that is a moment that we do not get back. And we get to decide how we're going to utilize this. Who are we going to be? Maybe we can't change regardless of who you're going to vote for or where you stand in all of it. We can't change everything out there. The only space we can make drastic change is this space here. And I vow to live my life from the heart, because you know why? It's just a healthier and more enjoyable life to live from. I would rather live my life from my heart than my toxic, angry soul anytime. Because that, if I'm living from that energy of that toxic, angry, pointing the finger at other people, pointing the finger at groups of people, engaging in the division because it feels so good. Because that's what it is. It's an addictive behavior. Toxic anger is an addiction in and of itself. That's why I am so adamant that the majority of our human collective are going through addiction. They just don't recognize they're in addiction because they're not sleeping under a bridge, and they're not shooting themselves up with needles, and they're not taking in toxic chemicals on purpose in their body. But they don't even realize that they are addicted to these toxic behaviors, addicted to these dopamine hits. And that's how we are programmed little by little over time. This division started somewhere. We didn't just wake up one day and we're all divided. So many of us ask the question, why is everybody so sensitive now? Why is everybody so sensitive now? This stuff came little by little over time, until it becomes such a cesspool where we have things like cancel culture and these things where we hate groups of people for what we believe our truth says about them. And so while we have ample opportunity to step into the addictive nature of toxic anger right now, I urge you, soul to soul, human to human, let's replace that toxic anger with a healthy anger that brings us to a place of change. Let's take our eyes off of everything that's happening out here, all the chaos that's being played for us, and let's bring it back into focus in where we live and where we are in our own life. Let us not miss a moment with the people we love. Let us not miss an opportunity to say thank you for the things we have, for what we get to experience in our world where we are. Because when we pull our attention and our energy back from all the bullshit gets starved out and doesn't get to live. That's the point of it all. The more we engage, the more energy we send to that. And as we send it there, we're keeping that fire burning. What is it that we really want? What is it that we're really looking for? Not to be necessarily a part of a group that stands for this or stands for that or stands for this or whatever. Because it's all bad. It's all bad. What do we stand for with us? What do we stand for with those that we love? What is it what is it that's important to us on a human level? I don't know. That's my deal tonight. I hope it's I hope something's happened here. I hope that there's something that has resonated here. I don't want to get too far into this, because if I get too far into it, I may just So let me read some comments, because we are live. We're live on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 platforms at once. So I'm going to get to some comments. Happy Saturday, my friend and my soul sister Pamela Topjian. Let me tell you guys something. Since we're right here at the end, I want to talk to you guys about a little bit of a few awesome resources. And my good friend Pamela Topjian happens to be at the top of that list, because she's an amazing human. She's amazing in this community, and she is my soul sister. And she has written this amazing book, I Didn't Come This Far to Only Come This Far. She's made it affordable for basically almost every budget. So I want you guys to go check this out. This is such a redemptive story, such a story about it's just never too late to keep recreating your life. If you don't like it, recreate it. If you're heal, 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 heal. That's the only power you have in this world right now, is to heal yourself. You know, happiness and love is an inside job, and that's what we got to do. This book is a great example of that. Pick that up on Amazon.com/Pamela Topjian. You can also pick up her other book, Behind the Mask, Gloves, and Scrubs, One Nurse's Journey. She has a beautiful way of being able to bring her story in, tell in a way that is entertaining, inspiring, motivating, and just just to bring it home. So pick up both of these inspirational books right there on Amazon /Pamela Topjian. Pamela is also an amazing healer. She specializes in hypnotherapy, and she has this awesome YouTube channel as well where she has this amazing guided visualization to overcome cravings. So if you are new in recovery, if you are in a space where you start to find yourself having cravings again, doesn't matter how many years you've been in recovery, you can have cravings again. Whatever you're going through, check out youtube.com /at Pamela Topjian and utilize all of the amazing tools that she provides there on that channel. I want to give a shout out to our amazing friend and just beautiful human and resource in this recovery community. That is Maddie Jablonski from The Point of Change. He has written this awesome book called Poetry of Change. Such a creative way that he tells his story through different poems. I just love it. I'm so proud of him. You can pick that up, amazon.com /poetry of change. Make sure to get the book, review it, leave him those 5 stars, and make sure you tell him LC and Recovery Soul Food sent you. And we love that guy, and I want to thank him for this. All right, last but certainly not least, this has been one of my great resources that I utilize a lot this year. It is our good friend, recovery mentor, Recover Yourself podcast host, Martin John Garcia. He has added his learned wisdom and experience to one of the most ancient books there is on earth. This is his version of the Tao Te Ching. You can pick that up at martinjohn.com. It's an amazing, has all 81 verses. It's pocket size. It can go anywhere with you. I use it like a devotional, and it's just amazing. Amazing. And since I just opened it up to verse 48, I want to read this. The title of it says, The More You Know. Pursuing knowledge, you accumulate daily, turning your true nature into a commodity. Pursuing Tao, you unburden daily, allowing your true nature to guide you. It's resistance versus non-resistance. The master unburdens herself again and again, diminishing, releasing, and deprogramming until finally there is nothing left to be. When there is nothing to be, there is nothing to do, and everything gets accomplished regardless. That's less striving, more being. What did we talk about? I love that because that's what we're talking about. We get less angry and in less toxic behaviors when we are open to being guided, when we trust, when that word faith comes in, because it doesn't matter what you call your creator, doesn't matter if you call it Tao, doesn't matter if you call it God, Allah, whatever that is, whatever it is that you feel most closely drawn to, when you trust, you're open to that guidance. So let yourself be guided. We got to stop trying to control all the outcomes, all the narratives. Keep on the grind, keep on the hustle, because we're afraid something's going to pass us by if we're not out there grinding. Doesn't mean be lazy. It just means stop being so invested in how that's going to turn out that you forget to live right now. Because what I've found in my life is every external thing or accomplishment that I thought was going to be the catalyst that took me to happiness, every time I got there, I was disappointed because it's fleeting. It doesn't last. And if your happiness doesn't start here, then it doesn't matter what you get out here. It doesn't matter. You'll never be satisfied. So pick up the Tao Te Ching. It is an amazing resource at martinjohn.com. All right, I want to get back to a comment because I just saw a comment that was very, that I wanted to address. Hector, my grief is keeping me from gratitude. Now, that is very real. It is very, very hard to be in the midst of grief. And I don't know what your situation is, but I send you so much love and support. And if we can sit here together in this for just this moment, sit in this grief together, and I send you that love and support to move through grief. Grief is a very, very hard emotion to be with because it often comes from a loss. It really, really does. And it's very hard to find gratitude when you're in the midst of this. And I think that you just have to give yourself the grace to go through this, whatever it may be. Mm, again, I just send you so much love. I just hold space for you in this time of what you're going through. And anybody out there that's going through grief, I think grief and anger are the two emotions that really, really affect us the most. And it's unfortunate that we are so prone as our human nature to love other humans, to love other creations, and that love sometimes ends in loss. And I think if you find any type of gratitude, and you got to start small in these places, you got to really start small, is when we're in the midst of grief, we can only think of the of the love that we were able to share. And if we could just find small moments, we don't have to get in a place where you make a list that's, a gratitude list. That's not even what it's about. It's about, for even the smallest moments, getting to just acknowledge the gratitude of getting to spend time with that human, getting to spend time and to love that person. And sometimes what I found in the grief, because when I lost my grandparents, I lost my best friend and my brother in the world. 2 weeks later, I lost my grandmother who had helped raise me, so she was very much like a mother to me. And 6 months to the day after that, I lost my grandfather, who again had helped raise me, was my best friend, and all of those things. And the grief took me to places because I could not ever remove the grief and hurt and anger for the loss. I never could move that from my perspective long enough to be able to recognize how blessed I was to have gotten to know those human beings and to have them in my life and to have had them love me, and just all the ways that they gave to me in my life. And so I think it takes time and it takes a while. And so we as a collective, we are praying for you. We send you love. We love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for putting that up and opening up that line of conversation. And yeah, you have people that are here that'll hold space for you in that, and that when we say we're going to pray for you and we're sending you love and support, that we truly mean that, and we are. Let us just notice that. Let us just notice that people are going through so much right now. And can we give grace to ourselves and to other human beings? Because we're all on a different journey. Every single one of us created for something different, in completely different bodies, with completely different lives, with completely different likes and needs and all of those things. And I guess it's hard for me to understand why we can't accept each other in that way. If everything we look at is God's creation, then every person we look at is also God's creation from every level. So, how can we shift to begin to see each other in that light versus the light of our differences? When did it stop being okay for all of us to have a difference of opinion and yet still hold love and space for each other? This is what we got to get back to, folks. We have to. That's what we're being asked to do. And that's what I myself am doing my best to do. And so I wish you all love and grace. I'm honored to have gotten to sit here in this space with you tonight. I pray that something resonates with you and maybe something touches your life. And if not, maybe you just had a good time hanging out with us here. For all the comments that I cannot see on all of those other platforms, I will go back and look and hopefully have the opportunity to respond. I will absolutely do my best. I love you guys so much. Remember, you can follow Recovery Soul Food on TikTok and Instagram. Instagram is at recovery underscore soul food. TikTok is at recovery soul food. You can go to Apple iTunes and Spotify and all your major podcast platforms, and you can follow our show. And if you feel led, please rate and review us. That helps content get out to other people. We are gearing up for one of the most amazing seasons of the Recovery Soul Food Podcast in season 6. I am putting together a master lineup for all of you to just bring you so much information, inspiration, and motivation to keep on getting up from your give up and creating lives you love. I'm looking forward to that's going to kick off. We'll make that announcement soon. But in the meantime, there's so much there to listen to. Thank you for your support already. If you want to help us keep going and growing, you can become a monetary sponsor of the podcast. You can go to anchor.fm/recovery soul food, click the support button, and pick a package. They're from 99 cents. The most expensive package is $9.99. It helps this podcast keep going. It helps us keep growing. And I truly appreciate all of those sponsors that are there already. I love you guys so much. This has been an amazing time. Thank you for all your energy. Until next week, hopefully we're going to pick back up on year 7 of this 10-part series. It's just there's just been other things that have come up that I have felt led to share with you. But hopefully next week we'll be back with our series of year 7, a divine year. Many beautiful things happen, and I'm so excited to share it with you. All right, until next week, have the most amazing week possible, because you can and you deserve it. You're amazing, and I love you. Bye, guys.